back to Workbook 1, Session 4. In this session, we're going to be baking a batch of sausage rolls. Don't forget, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you are absolutely fine to develop the recipe, just as if you want to change the recipe because you've got an alternative or better idea. In this session, we're going to be exploring further research you can do to adapt and develop the recipe. I'm also going to be talking to you about presentation skills a little bit. We will cover this more in depth later in the course, but it's time to start thinking about how you can present your dish in a more professional way. And then finally, we're going to be talking about a really serious topic, food poisoning, and the importance of understanding how to store and handle food safely to prevent the risk of food poisoning. So let's get started.
Generally speaking, a chef needs to be able to create uniformity within their products, and there's a number of reasons for this. In your sausage rolls, you need to create a batch of sausage rolls that are all the same size and thickness in pastry. Imagine being a customer going into a shop to buy a sausage roll, and in the window you can see a range of large and small sausage rolls. They're all set at the same price. Imagine handing over your money and then being handed one of the smaller sausage rolls. You're not going to think you've got good value for money. So that's just one reason. Another reason is that when you're baking the sausage rolls, if you have some smaller than others, you're going to have them bake at different rates, which could mean that some are going to be underbaked, the larger ones, or some could be overbaked and burnt, the smaller ones. You also need to make sure you get a nice even glaze when you use your egg wash on the sausage rolls. Make sure you spread the egg wash over all of the sausage rolls. One way you can improve the presentation of your sausage rolls is through the use of seeds, for example poppy or sesame seeds on top of the pastry. This could also improve the nutritional value of the dish. Lots of people prefer to eat their sausage rolls with some kind of dipping sauce. You don't have to make this as well as the sausage rolls, but how about presenting some pre-made sauce alongside your sausage rolls? This will add some more colour to the photograph and improve the overall presentation as well. Garnish is something we're going to look at in a lot more detail later on in the course, but it is something you can start thinking about now. Garnish is a good way of adding colour to a plate, even just through the use of herbs or a little bit of salad. Is there a way you could add garnish to your final photograph to improve the presentation of your sausage rolls? Let's move on to taste testing. So, why do we actually do it? What is the reason behind taste testing? First of all, it's a really good form of first-hand research. It's a way of us establishing what works and what doesn't. It's a way of reviewing some of our previous cooks. If we're taste testing somebody else's products, it might also help to give us inspiration for our own designs. Having somebody else complete a taste test of your product will also help with your product development. What you think tastes good might not be the same as what the majority of other people, so it's important to collect this feedback. So what sorts of things do we need to be discussing as a result of the taste test? Well, the first thing you're going to make a judgment on is the way that the dish looks, the appearance. You can make judgments about whether or not it looks appetising. You could discuss the use of colour. The second sense we use tends to be our sense of smell. Is there a strong aroma? Can you describe it? Obviously, we move on to taste. And it's important not to use generic words such as nice and good. You need to describe the actual taste. Is it sweet? Is it savoury? Is it bitter, for example? Moving on to texture, it's important to describe how the actual food feels in your mouth. For example, pastry should be flaky. If it has a soggy texture to it, that's not so good, but it's something you need to evaluate. And finally, you could even go on to talk about the nutritional value of the dish. You could make summary statements about whether or not you feel that the dish is healthy or unhealthy, and back it up with reasons why you think this. We now need to move on to the really important subject of food poisoning. Food poisoning occurs when bacteria have just the right conditions for just the right amount of time on food to reach dangerous levels. When somebody then eats that food, it becomes dangerous to them and causes them to become unwell with food poisoning. There are a range of different bacteria, but not all of them are bad. So if you were to leave a protein-rich food in a moist, warm area for any length of time, there's a good chance that when somebody goes to eat that food, The bacteria on it has multiplied to dangerous levels and could possibly give them food poisoning. However, there are a number of steps we can take to prevent this from happening. We'll cover that shortly. The symptoms you can get from food poisoning vary depending on the bacteria and your own immune system. It could be as simple as a headache, but it could become more serious than that. Stomach cramps, diarrhea and vomiting are very common symptoms of food poisoning. As it's a poison in your body wants to expel it from you as quickly as possible, which is why a lot of people suffer with diarrhea and vomiting. It's your body's way of trying to get rid of the bacteria from your body. Unfortunately, the real reality of food poisoning is that the worst symptom is death. In the most serious cases, people can die from food poisoning, which is why it has to be taken so seriously if you're a trainee chef. You now need to complete further independent research on the internet on the Weishaw E. coli outbreak. This will give you a much better, stronger understanding of the serious consequences of not following good hygiene practice when handling meats and other high-risk foods. When completing your self-evaluation and discussing how you worked safely throughout the session, if using meat, please specifically refer to how you stored, handled and prepared the meat products safely. You could go on to explain what could have happened if you had not followed these procedures during the practical. One of the first things you could talk about is ensuring that you used meat or ingredients that were within their use-by dates. You could also talk about the storage of these high-risk ingredients, making sure they're chilled and only brought out from the fridge when you're about to use them. Ideally, if using raw meat, these should be stored on the bottom shelf of your fridge to prevent meat juices from contaminating other foods. How you handle the meat when you're cooking is also important. Being aware that anything you touch after you've handled the meat is going to become cross-contaminated. You need to be washing your hands regularly and be very conscious of what you're touching when you've handled the meat. Ensuring that the meat is thoroughly cooked through is also very important. You can do this by sight, but you can also do this by using a thermometer to ensure that the meat has reached the correct temperature. You'll now need to complete further independent research on food bacteria and food temperatures. This will help you to complete Session 4 of Workbook 1.